Hi, everybody. It's Joe Cioffi on this Tuesday as we take a look at everything that's going on this morning. We're going to start with Harvey, then we're going to talk about the system along the East Coast, which doesn't look like that's not going to become a tropical system of any kind. It's just going to basically be a sort of like a mid-fall nor'easter. It certainly feels like October outside with cloudy skies here and rain not that far away and a bit of a raw northeast to east wind. We're also going to talk about the tropical Atlantic, and we are also going to get into some other possibilities down the road out in the long range. Just want to point out, here's the Houston radar in real time. And by the way, there's a big squall there that's just come on shore just to the east of Galveston. There has been a core of convection that's been developing all morning long. And one of the things that's been going on is the winds along the immediate coast have increased. I've seen gusts of 50 over several locations along the coast and sustained 40 to 45 for the last several hours. So with the center far out into the Gulf of Mexico, or certainly far enough out, perhaps with most of the circulation now over water, we might be seeing a little bit of strengthening, particularly as it drifts further to the east and away from the water that was previously upwelled. So don't be surprised if they nudge the winds up. I'm going to take a look. The advisories are running late for some reason from the Hurricane Center. They should be updated. They left the winds the same at 10 a.m. 28.4 north, 94.3 west, moving now north-northeast at 5, so that's important. And top winds are 45 miles an hour. Let me just real quick go through the discussion. There is a reconnaissance aircraft that's going to be checking the area this afternoon, so that'll be interesting to see what it comes out with. Circulation now moving at 025 degrees at 4 knots. And heading northeast, an increase in forward speed, which is good news. Got to get this thing moving to get it out of the way with what's going on in Texas and in Southeast Texas and in southwestern Louisiana. The rainfall amounts just to continue to be ridiculous. So let's go to see what the weather, the whole weather pattern is going forward and what we can expect. Harvey's remnants may come into the mid-Atlantic and northeast over the weekend. We're also going to touch on that. And stand by. So here we go. We're going to take a look at everything that's going on this morning. My Lord, it is just absolutely busy with all these weather systems running around. So let's first start with Harvey, and a couple of things are happening. First off, you can see these are the surface plots. What I've done is I've kind of gotten just the wind and the radar echoes, and you can see that there's heavy rains all around the Houston area, although it doesn't extend that far south and west of Houston, as the center of Harvey continues to make progress to the east, out further into the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico. But one of the things that's happening is I'm noticing a distinct increase in the wind. There are a number of stations right along the coast that are reporting sustained winds of 40 knots. And we are also seeing right in here, the center's down around this area, and you can see these radar echoes are starting to develop an arc around. There might be a little bit of strengthening going on. Look at the satellite loop, and right here, here's the center. Okay, here's the low cloud swirl. It's riding right along 28 degrees north between 94 and 95 west. But right up here in the northern semicircle, we're getting a burst of convection there. So there's no reconnaissance aircraft scheduled to fly in. So I'm guessing they're just going to do this off of satellite estimates. But there is some rather impressive convection that's beginning to develop again on the north and northeast side. And of course, this is going to enhance the rains in southeast Texas, perhaps more to the northeast, eventually more to the northeast of Houston, Galveston, and into southwestern Louisiana. You can see that right here. And here's that western edge of the brighter white cloud tops here, not that far west of Houston, Galveston. So this needs to get out another 60 or 70 miles to the east, it seems to be kind of edging along here. So I guess the hope for Southeast Texas is that if it can get to somewhere between 94 and 93 west, it might at least push the back of the edge of the heavy rain out of the Houston-Galveston area a little faster. But the downside is that it's going to push the heavy rain axis further east into southwest Louisiana, where they're getting also hammered. Here's the radar view. And you can see the rain lightens up west of Houston, but we're getting these heavy rain bands arcing westward from Beaumont on over to the Houston area down to Galveston, and there's the concentration of echoes a little bit closer to the center. Be interesting to see what the Hurricane Center does with this as we move on. Now here's the ever expanding total rainfall of 25 plus inches, which now touches the Louisiana border, even into some portions of extreme southwestern Louisiana. Virtually all of southeast Texas in that 25-inch plus. I wish they had another precip gradient that we could look at to see where there's the 30 and 35 inches, because there has to be amounts up to 35, 40 inches in this area. Just astounding with respect to the rainfall. We'll look a little further east. We'll go to the Lake Charles radar storm totals. And you can see the amounts do lessen, but a foot of rain has fallen all the way to the east into Louisiana, into toward Morgan City, some scattered areas near Lafayette. And when we look at the New Orleans radar, the Baton Rouge radar, we've got approaching some 4-inch amounts in and around New Orleans, and then west of New Orleans you start to get into some 4 to 6 inch rainfall. So even in southeast Louisiana, we're starting to see increasing amounts of rain. Okay, so let's now go to the system in the east, where we have the potential for tropical cyclone development is lessening, even though there seems to be a bit more of a well-defined center here. You still have most of the rain to the north and northeast of the center. This is really looking more and more like a nor'easter than anything else, and it's going to be running out eventually. The center a little bit earlier was near Cape Fear, North Carolina, which is right down in here. And it's away from where the main thunderstorm activity is. And you can see also here on the radar the rain that is extended northward now into central New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania. There's actually some heavier rains that arc back far to the north and west. So it really does have this look more of a mid to late fall nor'easter than it does a tropical system, certainly. And again, there's going to be some rain for my area. It looks like maybe a little bit of that rain might sneak into North Jersey and southern New England and Long Island. The European was actually a little more tucked in with this early on, and it does generate as much as an inch of rain as far north as New York City and Long Island. There'll also be a little bit of wind, but again, it's not a big deal. It's a miserable day outside from the standpoint of the cloud cover and the raw northeast wind and temperatures that are going to be just pretty much in the low to mid 60s all day long, and we'll get some rain with this as it slips northward and then eventually slips out to the northeast. I'm not really too overly concerned at this point. Even if it were to become tropical or subtropical, it doesn't really make a difference in terms of what the actual practical weather is. You wouldn't know the difference, and there are going to be gales in the coastal waters, and the ocean is going to be roughed up, so the beaches are going to be a big problem over the next couple of days as the system intensifies and moves away to the northeast. Now, let's look at the European model. We'll start with that, and you can see where the surface low is compared to 24 hours ago. I'm going to just jump back to 2 runs back. The low center just northeast of North Carolina on the Monday night run, and then on the Sunday night run, and on the run from last night, it's a little deeper and just a shade to the northeast of that. The precip shield on the surface getting a little bit further north, and here's this is Harvey, of course, out in the coastal waters, and the European has it inland. By the way, that plot, that is for this evening at 8 o'clock. Okay, so this is this evening at 8 o'clock, and then the European does have Harvey onshore coming into southwestern Louisiana as a tropical storm by tomorrow evening. This low has intensified considerably south of Nova Scotia, and the European takes it northeast from there. I'll take the wider Atlantic view in a little bit so you folks from the Canadian Maritimes can take a look. Now, one of the things that I'm picking up with respect to the remnants of Harvey is that the models seem to be showing a pretty well-defined circulation here. There's still a closed 1,001 millibar low, and you've got this high that's building down from the north on Friday. You know, we get this shot of cool air that comes down into the northeast. The cold front comes through here Thursday evening. There's the low Friday evening, and then you've got one low in Ohio and another one that redevelops a little weaker, of course, in northeastern Virginia, onshore flow, etc. So it looks like there might be a fairly decent shot of rain moving through the parts of the mid-Atlantic and northeast, from the Ohio Valley to the mid-Atlantic and northeast, Saturday night into Sunday morning, and then out that goes. And then we get another front that comes in here by Monday night. And by the way, just, I don't want to scare anybody, but the European does show something in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico starting up at around 144 hours, which would be on Sunday, and then takes it and just takes it slowly northeastward from there. It doesn't really develop it very much, but the last thing anybody needs in this area is even a weak system that produces another round of rains. So we're going to keep our eyes on that to see what comes of it, if anything at all. And it might just be a one-run wonder, so I don't want to really get too wrapped up into it until we see a bit more. And with respect to that first low, the European takes it south of Nova Scotia and south of Newfoundland. It kind of brushes both of them. Here is the next tropical system on the European. We talked about this last night as it moves westward. The European has a much more developed ridge out in the Atlantic. So it takes this thing pretty far along to the west, right through the period. So we'll see. If it stays weaker as it moves along, let me just make sure I'm not moving this backwards. Notice, by the way, that the European actually takes it southwest underneath that big high. That's an unusual movement. It makes it a hurricane, by the way, fairly intense Category 2, Category 3 hurricane, and moves it right over the islands. So I don't know how real that is, but something is definitely going to be coming out of there. And once again, with respect to the upper air, we're going to have to watch with this. First of all, we have to see if it develops. If the European is correct on the strengthening ridge that's out in the Atlantic, it's going to move further to the west. And you can see what happens at the end of the period, where you have this deep trough that's sitting accessed from James Bay down to Louisiana. It's got a positive tilt to it. So, that might mean, as it approaches the coast, that'll probably force this to recurve. So we're going to have to see how far west this gets. The GFS, on the other hand, had a different idea, a slightly different idea, in that it's a little faster with the trough and a little weaker with the Atlantic ridge. In fact, it really doesn't get the tropical system going until later in the period. You can see it here. And by this time, the ridge is weaker because the trough is deeper in the east and faster on the GFS, and it wants to take it along 70. Again, ridge, trough. Where are they? How strong how strong is the ridge? How deep is the trough? Where is the position of the trough? This is all going to be very important. I think the ridge is probably going to be the most important thing because that's going to be the driver to get it further west. Then we'll have to see what the trough is, if it's even relevant. And when we look at the surface on the GFS, just to calm the folks down in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, the GFS does have some area of low blow pressure there, but it really doesn't do very much with it. At least it didn't on last night's run. So the overall upper air pattern, when we look across North America, if it would load, please. There we go. And let me change the region for you so we can get a flavor of what's happening here. All the models have this deep trough coming into the east. The amplitude here for this time of year is really exceptional. I mean, look at this flow that comes straight out of northern Canada. Big ridge out in the western part of the United States, deep trough in the east. Very unusual for this time of year. If this were early October, I'd say maybe, but for early September, this is really unusual. And that eventually just lifts up, and the model actually wants to eventually build a ridge along the East Coast late in the period. I don't know how real that is because the GFS has been actually trying to do that for about 2 weeks now, and it hasn't really gotten it right. And if you look, I'm going back one run now, it has a much less of a ridge. It seems to me like the off-hour GFS runs that run mid-cycle like to build ridges in the east, whereas the main cycle runs that we get tend to want to be, keep this trough in the east, ridge in the west idea. But there's the 0Z with whatever Atlantic system is going to be there. So you know what? Let's see how, where this happens. And by the way, speaking of that Atlantic system, here it is on the UMET satellite. You've got it moving right over the Cabo Verde Islands. It has gotten better organized. You see that the convection is really balled up, and it's moving toward the west-northwest. So it's already up at around 15 degrees north. So at some point, it's going to start turning to the west. One of the things that I just want to point out, too, is the fact that when we look at the water vapor imagery, we've got another one of these strong upper lows out in the Atlantic. So the wave actually isn't even in view on this shot yet. So it's still pretty, fairly far to the east. I can just see it on the edge of the picture frame. I'll move it over so you can just kind of see it peeking onto the edge of the frame. And, this upper low is spinning. So there are some wind shear issues and some dry air issues in the tropical Atlantic, especially as you go east. Now, what this upper low does remains to be seen. Does it pull out? Does it weaken over time or start migrating westward? We'll just have to watch and see what happens over the next couple of days. So all of this down here is a long-term speculation. Anyhow, there's Harvey with the convection balling up a bit near the center or just north of the center. And here's your system in the off the east, along the east coast. The center is well away from where all the main thunderstorm activity is. So I think the chances of that becoming a tropical storm are lessening, and certainly with respect to being on the coast. And as I said, tropical or not, the impacts from that are going to be the same. All right, folks, going to switch over to live chat. I'll take whatever questions you have, and just stand by while I hit the right buttons and bring my face up on the screen. Okay, now I can talk. Sanyan Hernandez, thank you so much. I'll put it toward a cigar when it comes time for me to take a bit of a break. Good. Delvin, thank you for the audio report. So, a couple of things. We haven't, we're going, and we've been in what is a particularly active tropical pattern for the end of August. Usually activity does pick up to some degree, but I will, Sadian, thank you. Usually activity picks up to some degree, but we've got a lot of dynamics going on in the atmosphere. This trough, by the way, coming into the east Thursday night into Friday is the shot of cool air behind it is pretty significant. I think there will be 40s and even 30s up in 30s in northern New England, 40s even down almost to me, which is nice. And there will be snow. So notice that on the NAM and the GFS, there will be snow in parts of southeastern Canada out of this, in southeastern Labrador. So that's a bit early, end of September maybe, but not usually not now. I don't know that you can necessarily make any kind of connection between that happening. But again, going back to what I've been saying for a number of weeks, the trough in the east and particularly the amplitude of some of these troughs, the one that's setting up for next week in the east is about as deep a trough as I think I've ever seen during the early part of September. So it'll come with another cool shot behind it too. So the very interesting pattern that we're seeing. Trish and Lou, no, too early, but you know what? These deep troughs, so there's going to be some cold air coming down for the beginning part of September up in your neck of the woods. I want to see how that trough sets up, though, before I make some sort of final prediction. The other thing is, the European does develop something in the Southwest Gulf this coming weekend. Now, let's see what today's run does before we jump off the deep end, because that's the absolute last thing that needs to happen is another tropical system in the western Gulf of Mexico. Even a weak one behind this could be disastrous in terms of any rain. But, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, the models are there. I want to see a couple of more runs to see if that trend continues and what's driving it. All right. But that is something we are going to certainly take a look at. And, of course, this Atlantic system looks like it could become very robust in time. So we're going to be watching that. Raymond, I'm not really too worked up with the severe weather, let me see what the severe weather threat for Thursday with that front. Actually, especially by the time it gets down to me, a lot of the stuff winds up falling apart. Let me see for Thursday what the Storm Prediction Center has. I mean, they don't even have a marginal risk up for that area. I think that, we're getting to the point now where the severe weather threats a bit long in the tooth, especially for areas north of the coast in upstate New York and up and through New England. You're going to have a really perfect setup with tropical, very warm tropical air up the eastern seaboard and a very sharp cold front to produce it. And I just don't see it. So outside of some kind of tropical system affecting us, the severe weather system might be just about done. So, I mean, that's the way it looks. Marquise, is it too early for it to snow there? I mean, you're talking about southeastern Canada. It's a little bit early. Joe, can you one day teach me or us how to do a super chat? I want to do my own channel soon. You know what? I'm in the learning process too. With the super chat being the live chat we know how to do. The super chat, you're the first one to hit it, so I'm not sure how that works. Let me see. There's a button here. Go to channel, remove. Okay, just gives me the same commands. By the way, I did block someone. I'm sorry, I didn't block them. I put somebody in a timeout for a questionable comment. I'm just not going to repeat what the person said, but I like that timeout option. Let's put somebody in timeout for 5 minutes. This does not apply to the vast majority of you, but for those of you lurking, I think it allows you I think it allows you to have. I'm just clicking on it here. Let me see. I'm not. You know what? I'm going to have to look at this and see how this works, because I see you up there on the super chat, but I don't see any straight and there's no comments that are coming up on that board. So I So I think that Cyan, that just allows, that indicates that you and I are talking and it's being highlighted in a different way, but I'm not quite sure yet. I'm going to go over it and Google it a little later on and see just exactly how this works. Raymond, that European model run on your midnight stream had me confused because the CMC always wipes out the East Coast. Right, and you know what? If the European is doing something, I think that screams pay attention, because the European, especially this year, has not been spinning up tropical systems like the Canadian has. The GFS has been spinning them up to a slightly lesser degree. The European has been really picking and choosing its points. So that the European is doing it, I think, is relevant. So let's just, we've got a long time to watch this. I think really the big key to me is going to be that ridge in the Atlantic. How strong is that? Is that going to be the driver? The European has a super strong ridge out there, which would drive it along pretty far to the west. And I think that ultimately, that's how it plays. So Abaddon says, if you donate more, your comment stays up on the top of the live chat, which I do see at the top of I do see it. Cyan, don't worry about that. I certainly spend as much time as whatever. It's totally cool. How is the temperature in Boston? You got to be in the low 60s today, Delvin. With the clouds and eventually, some of this rain. I don't know how far north that rain may not get to you. I haven't given it a close look. There's so much for me to look at when I look at all this, weather stuff that's going on, especially when we have 3 tropical systems and then my own local weather. I oftentimes, I kind of tunnel vision over my area, and I don't necessarily remember or look close enough for places, say, just north of me or just east of me or just south of me. So, just bear that in mind. So, sometimes I have to go back and look to see what's going on. Let me just really fast, I'll throw the NAM up. The new NAM, which, by the way, does bring an intact low representing Harvey, has it in central Kentucky Friday night with a core of radar echoes in its circulation moving into the lower Ohio Valley. That low may wind up going to Northern Virginia and to off the Delmarva Peninsula. That's going to put me back in an onshore flow for Saturday. So, it certainly argues for a cool Labor Day weekend, perhaps. Let me see. Let me just go back to the Northeast. And we'll let this load up. Yeah, you know what, Delvin? You're going to get kind of skimmed by the rain. The northern fringe of the rain area barely brushes Boston, from what I see. So, you're probably going to be too far north. Yeah, that sounds about right. Mid 60s. Certainly, of course, that's obviously right because that's the current temperature. Yeah, I get to upper 40s, mid to upper 40s in and around the Boston area. Let's see. Albany is at 58. Nice. Yeah, I think I haven't looked at my current temp, but I would bet you I'm probably at about 62 or 3. I still don't have any rain yet here to speak of. All right, so let me see. If you donate more, your content. How is the temperature in Boston? Thank you, Cyan, and thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate. By the way, I do have ads that run on my channel, so I know sometimes the ads can be a bit of a pain, but I gotta eat too. So ultimately, I have to tell you, my aim is eventually to take everything I do and just be exclusive, to YouTube and Facebook, and that's kind of my goal. To this would be my job, the Joe Cioffi Show, the Joe Stradamus Hour. So kind of working toward that long-term goal there. Anyway, let's put an end to this as we approach the lunchtime hour. I actually have a 11-pound pork shoulder in the oven, slow cooking at about 220 degrees. That won't be ready for another 6 or 7 hours, but the smell is beginning to permeate the room, so I'm starting to get a little bit hungry. So let's put an end to this. Another live stream will be coming up. I'll do one this evening when we take a look at all the afternoon model runs and see what the latest goings on with Harvey and the tropical wave that's off the African coast, and of course the Noreaster pulling away to the northeast with the rains along the mid-Atlantic states and the windy conditions along the shore, and that moving out, and we'll cover all of that and the long range and much more. So please do come back, and thank you again for being here. Also, you'll see I have links up. If you haven't, there'll be links up later on. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, by all means, please subscribe. And of course, you can go to my website, meteorologistjoecioffi.com, Angry Ben on nycweathernow.com. And if those of you who are, kind of just learning about all this, I do have some instructional, I put up a couple of instructional videos back a few months ago when I had some time on my YouTube channel. So you might want to check those out as well. Have a great rest of your day, folks. We'll see you in you'll see you later on. I'll schedule the time in just a bit. I'm thinking maybe at about 6 or 7 o'clock might work. All right. Have a great afternoon.